Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. It's TED Talk time, and it's another wonderful Sunday. We didn't do the Tech Talk last week because I had my father visiting, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years. And it was really nice to see him, so decided to take a lot of it off and, well, spend time with him, which I think is probably the most important thing to do. So yeah, it's been an interesting week. A lot of little news pieces when it comes to War Thunder. Obviously, we had the Boxer, we had the covert leaks, we had the past to developers. There was a bunch of little things all over the place. Nothing too massive, I would say, but enough to at least keep everything interested and around the place. I did have a very good week. But just to let you know, we're back at full gas now. When it comes to emails, when it comes to Discord messages, stuff like that, I'll be covering them. And by covering them, I mean responding to them. There is a little bit of a backlog because I hadn't really touched them in about a week. So give it a bit of time, but it should be kind of good to go. So let's get into the Tech Talk. If you don't know what the Tech Talk is, it's a podcasty thing that we do where we look at the comments of the previous Tech Talks. So if you have any ideas or thoughts or things you want to chat about, stick them in there, and then we go through them. As simple as that. So in this video, which is being recorded on Sunday, and it's being posted on Sunday, we'll get to them next week. So we have Karam-chan with the good old timestamps. Thank you for that, Karam-chan. Very Hello. Kind of you, as always. That was incredibly loud. Thank you for the follow, Doomriser. That was right in the ear hole. But yeah, as usual, it's always kind. Doing the timestamps, I know it takes a little bit of time for people to do, so thank you very much. Then we have Real Grayson, and it says fixing spawn camping, wished we had a timestamp. Well, guess what? You do, so there you go. Luckily, Kwam-chan has been very kind with doing those over the years for people, so you get to enjoy them. So then we have C76 Caravan. Just a random realistic behavior I noticed recently. When equipping a drop tank and pushing negative Gs, the fuel flow from the drop tank stops and it starts slipping into the main tanks. Once the normal positive G returns to using the drop tank until it's empty, of course. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Like, the fact that they do stuff like that is really, really interesting. And I just realized, did I actually change? I did, yeah. Okay, we're fine. That's good. Hey, Fluxum, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Eep. Sorry, I'm just setting stuff up. Gaijin has a lot of little interesting kind of mechanic stuff that's in the game that usually people don't know about. So, for example, if you go into options and click this button down here, you'll find something that's really cool. But, yeah, stuff like the fuel tanks, if you kind of go upside down, the fuel stops getting used in the fuel tanks, which is pretty awesome, and instead switches to the main fuel because that's the one that's connected and isn't as affected by gravity. It's one of those little systems which is awesome, and it would be really cool, or it is really cool that they add stuff like that in, but they never really talk about it because of the fact that, I don't know, it's just kind of part and parcel of the system. It's also why, at the end of the day, it's one of those things that it might take a little bit longer in order to do, because of the simple fact that it's one of those which might not be that interesting to a lot of people, but for me, I think it is, and that's why I kind of like looking at it and seeing those things. Hey, Matej, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything's all right. I see you, Kerry, and also you. When will the update be? We haven't even had the first devlog yet. I have no idea. No idea indeed. Nice to see you, Fluxum. Constable Rod, good afternoon. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Other than usually older games on GOG, I've barely bought new games. I barely bought new games since I got burned by Ubisoft when I bought their digital IL-2 Stomovic copy and after years wanted to reinstall it, it would no longer do it because Ubisoft turned off their old validation server. That was probably 2006 or so. And since then, I never bought a Ubisoft game requiring online connection, and barely any other new games. The only exceptions I made were the remakes of AoE, Mudrunner, War Thunder, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Flight Sim, because it's such an influence on me, that brought me into aviation, and just being an amazing product in its current iteration. And 2024 looks like it's going to be amazing as well. It does look really cool, actually. I do agree with that. Nice to see you, Liberator. Hopefully everything's okay. Would I love to play, e.g. Assassin's Creed Battlefield 1, or am I intrigued by upcoming games? Yeah, but I still have a bunch of GOG games that I haven't played. But more importantly, I'm done with this dumb you don't own the games, and we can revoke your access anytime development. Therefore, I'm done buying new games. They are entertainment products, so there is no need for temporary license. If new games are interesting enough, they wouldn't have to worry about old games keeping players away from buying new games. And any issue with licenses to use brands in-game, well, it wasn't an issue in the age of physical game copies. I agree. By the way, if you are interested in GOG stuff, it's worth actually getting Amazon Prime to get the Twitch or the Amazon Games thing, like the Twitch Games thing, because you can get a bunch of GOG games through Twitch every month, which is kind of cool. So, that's something that is worth getting, because obviously the cool thing about GOG is you keep everything forever, right? Like, there's no like licenses or anything like that you have to worry about. The thing nowadays with games is a lot of newer ones, they have an online component. And I don't necessarily mean a PvP or like a multiplayer component, but they have a constant update cycle where they fix stuff, they change stuff, they move stuff around. So they need some kind of internet connection in order to do that, right? Which is where this stuff gets a little bit crazy. So with physical discs, if you bought a disc and it was broken, and you were kind of stuck with it, like way back in the day, like with old consoles or even just kind of newer consoles, then yeah, you were just kind of screwed. It's just bugged forever. I remember Fallout 3 was one of those, which was just a pain in the ass on Xbox 360, where what ended up happening with it a lot was was the fact that you would get stuck in certain vaults, and if you tried to leave, your game would crash. Or Skyrim was another one which was like this, where there was a ton of game-breaking bugs in it that were just never patched on console. There was one of them where if there was a mission, a main quest mission, it was a main quest mission where this guy, you had to talk to him through a jail door. And what would end up happening is the dude would just not come to the door. So you could not get past the mission because you could not talk to the guy because he would not walk to the door. Right? Now that is nuts, right? So it's insane to think about, but then people were just stuck on that mission and couldn't ever get past. And there was so many games where like you would complete missions and nothing would work on them and they just wouldn't class as like completed. That happened a lot in Fallout 2. That was so annoying. So yeah, the simple thing is we live in like this world now where you can have better experiences in games, but it also means that you have to give up a lot of stuff in terms of the whole rights to them. And that is definitely a problem. And I'm kind of sick of it. Like I don't like this new world we're in right now where, well, not new, it's been happening for 10 or 20 years, where you don't actually own anything, which was kind of why it was nice, like, getting a bunch of, like, MTG cards recently, because, they're not going to disappear, they're physical things. Hey, River Bridge, nice to see you. And it's, when it comes to, like, online stuff, the way that I see it is it's all fictional. So it can be taken away within like a second, and that is super sad because especially nowadays, a lot of a decent amount of people's lives can be in the online space, whether it's like work stuff, whether it's, you know, friendship stuff, and that can just go like that and disappear. And it's just really sad. And I hope we go back to a time where that isn't the case, or politicians can start putting in more laws about keeping stuff secure, but also keeping stuff or being able to keep it alive. And I don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but we'll have to see. Hey, MMEM, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. My guess is it won't do because they're still running off copyright laws from about the 1980s. So yeah, we have a long way to go. But who knows? Hopefully one day we'll be able to sort it out. But today is not that day. But yeah, GOG is a really good system. It's a fantastic setup, so I'm very glad that people are using it. Knowing WTC, they might kick your door down and revoke your MTG cards for violating 2AS. Yeah, they could. Yeah, death to live service, but not that kind of death, the good kind. Well, it's not, live service is not bad. I mean, the issue with live service is this. People started taking free-to-play monetization and mechanics and adding them to paid products. So now everything is just the same. And that's the problem right there. It isn't like live service as an idea is actually pretty cool and has been around for a long time. Stuff like World of Warcraft, right? And even a lot of the old MMOs. It's just the fact that now every game has to be seen as a service, even though it shouldn't be, right? And Ubisoft, especially, like, you know, talked about before, Ubisoft has really just, well, you know, shit the bed when it comes to it. And they've just gone the completely wrong route in terms of making these things the way that they are. It's actually kind of funny to watch. Just a company doing the same thing over and over and over again, and then wondering why it's not working for the 20th time. Yeah, kind of weird. Hey, Tomahawk, nice to see you. As a truck driver, I'd love for the premium that I pay for is used only when I sign on. Sucks I pay for a year and don't use it all up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. That can be annoying. I do agree. It would be interesting if you could get, like, a different setup. I remember World of Tanks did the Premium Plus stuff. That was super weird to look into, like how it all works and everything. Because they did they had Premium and then they had Premium Plus, which is a monthly subscription where it gives you like additional rewards on top of other things. So weird. Do we know when the birthday sales come? Around November. Oh. Right. So then we have Maxwell. Hi Tech. My opinion on the APHE changes is that even though it will be annoying and uncomfortable to adapt, it's a good idea. However, other shells need to change too. APDS, for example, and Hash. Tanks like the Conqueror and the FE4005 feel very RNG, because that's all they have. Another thing I'd like to point out the fact that now you can change your ammo loadout while in battle. This is a great change, in my opinion, because when you get a new vehicle, you want to figure out the right amount of ammo to bring, and this helps with that. I would like it to be a step further, though. What if you change your ammo loadout and enter a capture point, and you can start loading the new loadout of ammo? One last thing, I spent my first money in War Thunder a month before. I bought 2 Gaijin coins, got an IS-3 graffiti skin. Do you like it? I love it. I saw and bought it instantly. Don't regret it at all. If I had a better PC, I'd buy a vehicle, but I won't be able to use the premium days. The Samoa seemed good, but I'm already researching 7.7, so I don't know if it's worth it, even in a discount. Samoa is definitely worth it, but yeah, it's... If you're looking to spend money, obviously premium time is the way to do it, right? It's kind of cool that you found a camo that you liked. That's super nice. Is it possible for Thailand to be added as a substitute to Japan? Yeah, of course. The IS-3 camo. I haven't heard of that one. Let's see. Whoops. The graffiti bomb? Oh, this one? Is this the esports one? Whoa. There's a lot going on, isn't there? God damn. That is pretty fun. I like the tiger barrel. Is this like a realistic camo? No, it's fictional. I was gonna say. It's kind of cool. I like it. I don't know when I got this one. But yeah. Yeah, you can change the amount of ammo that you can bring into the next update in the little camo thing, in the little like window while you're in. I think you've always been able to do that though. I don't think that is a new thing. Or it might be. I'm not sure. I'd have to look. But yeah, I generally think it's a good thing that they did. It's nice that you have a little bit more control over what you do in the matches, but I don't think it's changing, at least for me, that much in terms of like how I approach a lot of these things. So I kind of like leave my ammo at a specific point pretty much every time, and then just don't really move it at all. So like with stuff like that, it's nice to see it change, but it's not going to be something that I'm too bothered about. But for other people, of course, it's quite important. So nice to see that they're doing it for them. And then the thing about the rounds, right? It would be nice to see some changes to certain other rounds that are in the game. But the major thing for me is it is very obvious that one of them is overperforming compared to the rest. So there is a very obvious change to make in terms of fixing one of those rounds. So you make that change and then you start looking at the other ones. It's like if you have like a graph, right? And then everything is like down here, and then you have one thing that's like up here. And instead of like going, well, why is this so high up? Instead, you try and raise everything up to its level, and hopefully that equalizes out. If you have like 5 components and one of them is massively off compared to the rest, you focus on that one, and then you see its relationship compared to the other components that are there. You don't focus on the other 4, because the other 4 might be wrong, you know? The other 4 might be completely busted, and everything might be just nuked by it, right? But until you fiddle with it and see its relationship with the other 4 components, you don't know how, the rest of it's going to react. So yeah, for me, when I look at stuff like that, it's more about that instead of the other setup, Any advice for the RGO gameplay? Well, the Centauro? Flank, scout, shoot stuff in the side. When the initial advance has been neutered from the enemy, use that time to counterattack, take caps, and then from there, use the mobility to just get between them, and then attack the other caps as you go around. That's pretty much it, right? Use the mobility to get into a forward aggressive position. Use that position to get scouts and kills with the gun. And then after that, take the caps and go from there. Have you seen that the new custom sites, there's a rangefinder faster than the default site? No. The rangefinder is like super fast anyway though. So I don't know. Then we have King James. I think some element of RNG is important in games, and everyone isn't going to feel good about everything, especially when they're losing. RNG is important up to a point, but there is definitely good RNG and bad RNG, right? And we've talked about this before. And usually, the more random an RNG event, the worse it is. So, for example, like if you think about PvE games, like dice rolling isn't as bad in a PvE game as it is in a PvP game, just because of the fact that you you generally don't have a huge negative outcome. Like, you can usually work around it if that happens. But in a PvP game like this, if you're rolling the dice over and over and over again, you're eventually just going to lose, right? And it's just kind of annoying when that happens. But for me, RNG is not like an absolute evil, and it's also something that you can never get away from in terms of War Thunder and also other games. Like, it will always exist in some way because of the server stuff, but limiting it, I think, is super useful. What performs well, the F2 or the F16? Well, both of them do, but the F16 obviously is better. Still would like a Messer Spit in the game as an event aircraft? Yeah, it'd be nice to see. Or the BF, or not the BF-109, but the Spanish vehicle that looks like a BF-109, but has access to the Merlin engine. But now, people do remember negative things much more than positive things. It's a problem the human race has. It's very annoying. I wish the human race was better in terms of dealing with negative and positive stuff. It's just I mean, you see it like when it comes to general media, people just focus more on negative stuff than positive. It sucks. I hate it. I really do. It's the worst. It's the worst problem with our personal programming. If we can fix that, then we can just utopia time. You know what I mean? FA18 would probably come December. Yeah, the ones, I think they're called like the HA114s or something like that. Because there was those, and then there was the Heinkul's, which had access to the Merlin engines too. They were quite fun. But yeah, I agree that some sort of RNG is good, just not really in a PvP setting. I would prefer... I think it's fine in PvE stuff. And obviously quite fun in like games when you set up like scenarios and things. But in terms of a PvP setting, it can only be frustrating. So then we have Charlie Harris. Good old Charlie. What would your opinion be if Gadget removed the crew lock on top tier aircraft? Because I kind of find it to be more of a nuisance than anything. Doesn't really serve its purpose anymore. It used to, but it kind of doesn't anymore. And also, okay, how does it not serve its purpose? The whole point of crew lock, as an idea, is to make it so people don't just see a map and then just leave. Because they don't want to play the map, right? And therefore, so, for example, Enlisted, right? Enlisted, as a game, did not have any crew lock. I think they have a system now which isn't crew lock, but it kind of gives you a reason to like play maps that you don't like. But what used to happen in Enlisted is you would have maps where you would spawn in on them and you would be there and then it would just be 1 versus 10, right? And it would even start, and you would have a look at the scoreboard, and it was like, oh, it's like a 5 versus 5 match. And then 4 people on your team leave because they don't want to play that map. And then they would just go to the next one. And then just keep doing that over and over and over again until they found a map that they actually wanted to play. And this happened a ton in Enlisted when I was playing it. So the whole point of crew lock is to stop that happening. And it does. You know, it's one of those things that is classed as a necessary evil, in my opinion, where it's something that does a job to stop people just trying to cycle through maps to just get the one that you wanted to get, right? And then let's see. And also, what would be your opinion if, say, you ground out a top tier aircraft, but you got it completely spaded? Meaning you wouldn't have to go through the hellscape of the stock grind. And also I think a top tier smaller team sizes should be permanent. Well, the good thing is Gaijin have left it up to the community to pick what they want, right? So with like the size of the games, I think that's the positive way of doing it, right? So it's up to the players now to pick whether they want smaller or larger teams, and that's how it should be. More player choice is positive. It should be set up that way. So I'm very glad that Gaijin did that. They did it in the correct way. And it's really nice to see that that they listen to people and that they have ended up setting it up properly. So that's good. I don't think they should just force people to play in a certain way because some people want them to, right? When it comes to the spaded thing, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. From a player's perspective, including mine, if vehicles just came spaded, it would be much easier to play them, right? But then also, from a Gaijin perspective, you're losing a monetization model. You're just removing it from the game. It's just gone, okay? So the question that you have to answer, if you have this idea, right, is how can you remove it? Because that's removing a chunk of income from the company, which we don't know the percentage of it, only they do. How do you remove that, replace it with something, but then also still have that loss on top of it? And can they deal with that loss? Because that's why that system's there, right? The system is there so people have something to purchase, to, you know, go through, or to kind of grind out. And as a person who enjoys, like, spading vehicles, like I do, so, you know, 90% of the vehicles in the game, I'm just not going to play anymore because I already get them fully spaded, right? So there's no incentive for me to actually play them. So you have to try and work out... You have to try and work out how you fill that gap. Because obviously, you know what would be also great when we played War Thunder? It would be really cool if every time I played War Thunder, like, a bunch of free food just turned up outside my door, right? Or what if when I played War Thunder, I just got, like, $10 every time I played, right? So, like, these are only positive things, but somebody else loses out while this happens for me. So the question is, how do you balance that out, right? Hey, Bosun, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Lorden. Hopefully you're doing all right. So yeah, I don't think they should force matchmaking on people. I think the way that it is now is perfect, where people can choose the matchmaking they want. That's how it should be. They'll never make vehicles just come spaded. It just won't happen because of the monetization model of the game. And in terms of the crew lock stuff, as I said, it's an unfortunate necessary evil, but it does its job. And that's what it needs to do. It needs to do a very simple job, and it does it very effectively. I hope that it never changes, because as I said, I played games like Enlisted, which didn't have a crew lock system, and it bust the matchmaker and didn't work properly. Right? You even see it a lot you see it in War Thunder already, where people will just leave maps that they don't want to play. So imagine that, but 20 times over. You spawn in a map, and then half your team just leaves. You know. I've had the smaller team check on since day one of it coming out, and gotten into a smaller match size maybe 2 times. Yeah, and that's the players making the choice, right? If the majority of people don't pick the smaller battles, then you just don't get them. But the community has the decision. It's just like the community map voter thing, and people complaining about only seeing like 2 or 3 maps over and over and over again at certain BRs. That's because that's what people are picking in the community to play. So we can either play the Gaijin blame game, or we can play the community shouldn't get choice game. And for me, I think the community should be able to choose their own experiences. That's a part of it, right? So we have Maxwell again. Hi, Tech. One more thing that happened that I find funny. Where did that 262 go? There he is. I watched the video about the 76 and left a comment. And people say it's bad. And some people told me that it's bad, but I don't think it is. That's fine. I don't do well in other tanks. However, someone said, and I quote, "Bro, all Sherman variants are horrible except for 50 cal." How even you tell me that there are people that see the 76 Sherman and say, "Ah, yes, bad tank." Yeah, well, put it like this: you're always gonna get some weird people when it comes to opinions on War Thunder. Like it's the Sherman. The Shermans are always underrated for vehicles because people don't take into account the stabilizer, but also different people like different things, right? So just how it goes. For me, I like the Shermans because they're just like, what's the word? God, I just can't hit this guy. I feel like the fire rate on this is a lot lower than the sound. I like the Shermans because they're pretty much like just jack of all trades, right? They got the stabilizer, they got the good round, they have okay mobility, they got the 50 cal, it works well, but yeah. It's just how it goes. So then we have Jeffrey Ellingson. Right. Is War Thunder doing another tourney live stream? Yeah, they're doing the Air Superiority tournament right now. So they're doing like the qualifiers. They've expanded the Twitch drops so people watch the qualifiers instead of it looking like there's only 200 viewers watching it instead of thousands. Because, I mean, that's why people watch it, for the free stuff. It's just how it goes. Alright, let's see. You lost me when you talked about imps? What, imp implosion? Well, imp implosion's just like a really easy way of showing how, like, a bad way that RNG can be made. Where whatever happens in the scenario, somebody's annoyed. If you have, like, good RNG, you want at least you want at least a positive outcome for one side, and the other side to be neutral or positive that it happened to. Whereas an imp explosion, no matter what happens with what goes there, somebody is annoyed. Like, there is no way of coming out of that scenario where there is a person who isn't annoyed and aggravated by an experience. And that, to me, is a great indicator of what is, like, good RNG and bad RNG. If you get like hit and it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, it is how it is. Like, I could have maybe played it differently or could have done something differently, then it's fair, right? It's just what it is. But if you set up in a way and no matter what was going to happen, it was going to either negatively affect you or negatively affect the other person, where it gets you to a point of visibly getting annoyed, then that's not good. that's not how it should be, right? Like, that's at least the way that I see these things. Alright. I should probably get the useful mods for this. Then we have Red Ned. The Tishio talk kind of hit home for me. I look up to my mother in very much the same way. She never had a good life, and while raising my siblings and myself, things didn't look like they'd get any better, but she gave us a good life, and we're all living well because of her. I spent 2 hours typing, deleting, then typing again, only to delete all but this. I think we've all had similar experiences, right? In that way. Like, for me, it was my grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family. She was the one who sacrificed so much for my family to be in the position that it is right now. You know, I have a lot to thank for my grandmother. My father is very much like the pillar of like the family now, and he is an amazing human, easily the best that I know that's still around. But at the same time, he wouldn't be in the position that he was in if it wasn't for my grandmother. My grandmother did so many things that are just insane to think about. And unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago after getting Alzheimer's. And the stories that I would like, because she was one of those people who never ever kind of like talked highly of herself, or never ever like brought up anything that she ever did. But everybody who I ever met who was like in her life or around her life always talked positively of her. She taught me how to make food. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to basically present myself. She taught me posture, of all things. And she also taught me respect and everything like that. And also, just so, for example, right? My grandfather worked very hard. He was a school teacher, but he was also what we would call stingy. He doesn't still, but he didn't like spending money on anything, and to a point where he would run cars into the ground where there were more rust than car, right? So he was like horrific in terms of spending money, and because back then in England, women were just not really allowed to do a lot of that stuff. So, for example, if you needed a car loan to be able to get a car, you as a female were not able to sign for it. So what my grandmother used to do is she would take my father and his sister to like car dealerships in order to get a new car because they had the money, they needed it, but you know, my granddad just didn't want to spend it. So what she would do is literally forge his signature with the car salesman understanding that that's what she was doing in order to get the loan for the damn car. Which is just so ridiculous to think about that this would happen in like the 70s or the 80s. But really, the 80s and the 90s were a big shift in terms of like kind of female rights in England because of stuff like this. So, and she had to do stuff like that. She worked as an X-ray person. I can't remember what they're called, but you know, a person who used to do X-rays. My father wanted to go to university to study pharmacy, and because he knew that if he'd study pharmacy, he could find a job in it, basically. Because in the 70s and 80s in England, it was a pretty rough time. So what he ended up doing is that, but the family couldn't afford to put him through university. So my grandmother didn't just do her job as a X-ray tech. She also baked cakes for people. She made dresses. She did photography on the side, and she did all of these little things to basically scrape together money so my father would have some money to actually do his university stuff and also at the same time pay for his courses. Because even though he did get some scholarships because he did incredibly well in school, at the same time, it's one of those things where, you know, if you don't have money, then you can't really do anything with it. So she did all of these different things. She was one of the first people who got involved in stock investing when that became like more public and available to people. She loaned like my father some money to start his first business. She set up like so many different things for our family, and all did it while having opposition in the form of my granddad, who didn't want to do any of these things because he once again didn't like spending money on anything. So the fact that he was like kind of in opposition, and the fact that my grandmother was able to do all of these things, and as I said, to kind of set up the family in such a positive way is insane to think about. Like the amount of adversity she must have had to deal with, and the fact that she was able to do it as effectively as she did, makes me incredibly proud to be in part of her family, right? And it was so sad when she passed. But luckily, do have a lot of good memories of Christmas meals or, you know, things like that, where we would always go over to their house on Boxing Day, and we would always have these like large, kind of luscious meals that she would put on, which was always fantastic. Oh, how did I miss? But yeah, it's nice to see that other people have those types of figures in their life, which are either positive or negative, right? Like, people who basically are born out of adversity are always the best people. Always fantastic to see. Alright, there we go. Assist? Sad. But yeah. It's always good to see people rise from the depths. Then we have Treybone. It really drives me crazy that the second I spawn in high-tier ground with my jet, I'm instantly killed by a Panzer. I mean, fair enough. It can be kind of annoying. Panzers are definitely better than pretty much everything else that's out there. I think in general, there is ways to counter them. In terms of, you know, going close to the ground and doing all that stuff. But yeah, that won't be as easy for certain people to do on certain maps. Which is why, as a CAS element, you have to kind of pick and choose your battles. Certain maps are very powerful in terms of doing that, other maps not so much. Hey Stephanie, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing okay. But yeah, it can be annoying, I do agree. It's definitely not always a positive experience facing certain elements of CAS. The thing that annoys me about the Panzer is not its existence. It's just the fact that nothing else is as good as it at doing it, and also the incredible disparity between certain weapon systems and others. So, for example, the fact that the Florakrad is the same BR as the Panzer is hilariously dumb. Like, to a ridiculous point, right? I don't know how I missed that guy. That was weird. But yeah, it's hilariously dumb how bad that stuff is. Oh, it's a yak. Okay. They should really look at balancing stuff like that out. I don't know whether they can give nations access to better stuff, or if they could just reduce the usability of it. I don't know. But whatever happens, something has to be done. Good morning, Donny B. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Nice to see you too, Last Stars. I should bounce Freeman out. A man shouldn't have such huge balls. We nearly completed Trine yesterday with Freeman, which was nice. Been a really fun series to play, though. Then we have Islam Ziad. Hey, Tech. I tried the 5.1 stereo and solved the engine volume problem for one day. Did you try 7.1? 7.1's the best one to go for. At least in War Thunder. But that kind of sucks. Are you unable to sort it out fully? I wonder, because since nobody else is having that issue, is it like a hardware problem? Like, could it be on your end with like your headphones like screwing up? Because I've had that in the past where my headphones have just decided they just want to be worthless, and not work properly. Then we have Shadow Dweller. So what's your setup? What's in your computer, mic, and streaming stuff? Yeah, sure. So I have, let's see. There's quite a lot of it to start off with. I have a Shure mic, which is a classic kind of like condenser mic that you see in front. That one, I should have probably got the USB one, but instead I got the one where you have to do it through a, I can't remember what it's called, but like a volume thingy, like a, where you have to do it through like a volume, whatever, like a volume board thing, a soundboard. I can't remember what the name is, but a super cheap one, a Bose one, which just goes straight through it. I use like an Insignia keyboard, which is like a $10 keyboard. I use a random Chinese mouse that costs about $10 too. Mainly because of the fact, little PT76. Mainly because of the fact that I don't want to buy an expensive mouse, because I'm worried that if it dies, I'm going to be super out of pocket. But usually with these mice, I buy from like the same random crappy Chinese brand every time, and it costs me like $10 each time. So they last for like 2 years. Like it's this. They last for like 2 years, and then I just replace them. Works pretty well. Then I use MSI 2K monitor, which is quite good. It has like a 165 hertz refresh rate. So I run everything on 120, which is super nice. And also it has like GSI and is it GSI? It has G-Sync and V-Sync. That's the thing. So it has G-Sync on it, which is quite cool. So that works really well. My other two monitors are two standard 1080 ones, which I use on the right, which are connected to my other PC. So this is where it gets a little bit crazy. So all this stuff I talked about so far is peripherals. Oh, I also have some Sennheiser headsets. I can't remember exactly which ones they are, but I've only gone through 2 pairs in 8 years. So yeah, and you know they're 7.1 surround sound. They work really well. Let's just see if I can find out which ones they are. Are they 2.0 mono? That's kind of crazy. Yeah, these Sennheiser headsets are really nice. They're not very good for noise cancelling, I'm gonna be honest. But they are super comfy and don't leave too much of a hole in my head, which is the most important thing. Because at least for me, you know, having a hole in my head, not great. But let's just find which ones they are. I think they're like the HD60s. Sorry, they're the Game 1 ones. So, yeah, G4, the Game 1 open acoustic PC gaming headset. You can't buy them anymore, so they must have like a new model of them. But yeah, they're just a wired headset. I prefer wired stuff because of the fact I've had too many times where wired stuff, like wireless stuff, I don't like dealing with the batteries or anything like that. I'd rather just plug them into a PC. So that's like peripherals and all of that. Oh, I do also have an Elgato face cam. It's a 1080p one, which is right here. And then also I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lights around me. But I recently changed my setup, so it's slightly different. So I'm still working on the lighting, which is why you can see the green in a little bit. But also the reason why I changed the setup is because I recently changed the desk to one which actually moves. So we have a standing desk now, which is really cool and pretty fun. So that's like one of the last parts of the puzzle in terms of like all this being set up. So yeah, that's what's in front of my face. And then I have a pretty nice office chair, which I've had for like 2 years now. It's a heavy duty one, so it can hold up to 400 pounds, which is quite funny. But yeah, I'm not anywhere near 400 pounds, but it's nice to have a bit of leeway. Then also, I have a wireless keyboard. Oh, why is there just like a light there? Do you see what I mean about like screwing over the lights and stuff? Right, let's see if I can fix this. That fix it? Yeah. So, so now that I have a standing desk, I can do like a bunch of fun stuff. The desk chair I have, as I said, it's a really beefy one, which I really like. Let's see if I can find out which one it is. Because I looked into like getting a really expensive one, but the problem with desk chairs, and even with like those gaming chairs, is they all have the same fault, and it's the metal pipe that connects the legs to like the top of the chair. That is the area that breaks every single time, especially if you're a bigger dude like me. So what I decided to do is instead, yeah, so I got a Fantasy Lab office leather chair, and this one is like reinforced on the bottom, so it has like big metal supports on the bottom, then also has like these really nice headrests. And also armrests which can move. It also has a thing that can fold out at the bottom, so you can put your legs on it, which I do sometimes. But usually it's just nice because it's heavy on the bottom, so it's got a lot of support. So it won't like crack or break or anything. Hey, crazy kid, nice to see you. And that's super important, as I said, for me. The other thing as well is I have a wireless mouse and then I have a wireless keyboard because I have two PCs that are running in tandem. So I connect the two PCs with an Elgato HD60X, which is a 4K. It's a 4K video card thingy, and that means that I can play on one PC and it streams it to the other PC, which is where all my software is in terms of like recording, streaming, doing all of that stuff. One of the problems I was running into when last year was, since I increased the amount of content I was doing, it was taking a large chunk out of the PC. So I couldn't process, stream, and also record all at the same time. With this new setup, I can now. So that's kind of what I do. And what ended up happening is, with these two kind of like tandem PCs together, one of them has a 3070 in it and a 10700 i7, a 10700F, I think, from Intel. And the other one has a 3070 Ti and the same CPU as well, so the 10700. And everything else, one of them is water cooled, one of them is air cooled. The gaming PC is water cooled, the other PC is air cooled. And the whole point of it was just to try and test some stuff out, but also at the same time have some stuff which was similar. So if there was a problem with them, I could easily chop and change. Hey, Salty John, nice to see you. So I have a 2070 as well, which is just kind of sat there just in case anything goes wrong, so I can quick switch it. And two monitors, so these two over here are attached to what is Gertrude, which is the streaming and recording PC, and then I have one monitor here, which is the main monitor I use to game, and that one is attached to Mavis. Mavis is the gaming PC, Gertrude is the recording streaming PC. So that's pretty much how it all works. It required a lot of cable management. It required a lot of setting everything up. But now it is all set up. I'm very happy with it. And yeah, it basically means that everything runs really well. The only problem, I also have two green screens. So I have one here angled and then one here angled. And that's just because of how the room is and also where I liked sitting in it. So I could probably get away with one green screen, but you'd see a lot of light and it would look a bit odd. But yeah, so that's pretty much the setup nowadays. There's a few other little things, but it's mainly just like hard drives and SSDs. I have a few HDDs for recording. I have a few SSDs for recording. I have a few externals to be able to move stuff between areas. Because obviously playing on one PC and streaming on the other one, you have to transfer a lot of files a lot of the time, and it's kind of annoying. But, it's better than the old system where it was literally breaking because there was just too much going through it. I think overall, the setup that I have is really good, and I'm really happy with it. It costs a lot of money to put together, but all of the money that I put into it, so technically, if I put everything together, this is probably like $3,000. But all of the money that I made through YouTube over the last few years, the vast majority of it went to upgrading the setup, so therefore it's a better experience for you guys. And what? So I think overall I'm very happy with what we did, and Matrix helped me out a lot putting everything together and also understanding a lot of PC stuff. I have built Mavis, and I also have the first machine that I ever used was a laptop, a Toshiba laptop, and then we ended up using what is known as Bertha. Now Bertha was the first PC that I put together which had a it had a Radeon graphics card. I can't remember what it was, but it also used DDR3 a long time ago. And then with Bertha, we upgraded the motherboard, we upgraded the CPU, and did a full rebuild of Bertha. But Bertha the cage wasn't big enough for the third rebuild, so we ended up just building a whole new PC, which is Gertrude. And then early last year, we built Mavis to kind of bring everything together. Hey, dog, nice to see you. I do want to sort that out at some point. Like the good old... You get those on 4000 series cards, right? I'm still waiting for them to go a little bit down in price, and then I'm gonna get one for Gertrude, and then just chuck it in. I have... So the power supplies I have are beefy enough to deal with it, so... I think I have like 700 or 800 watt power supplies. We got the gold ones ages ago. But yeah, so that's pretty much the setup. As I said, a lot of work went into it, and I haven't, touched wood, I haven't really had any issues with it. So I had one issue where it started blue screening a few years ago. And that was because of a bad RAM stick. My DDR3 died. My good old DDR3 ended up kaputting, and it turned out they didn't even make the DDR3 anymore. So it was either, okay, I could buy some off eBay, or I had to like get a new motherboard, right? So so we were like, you know what? Let's just get a new motherboard, do DDR5, and then just do that. Because I'm a person who future-proofs like a crazy person. I really enjoy future-proofing because I'm sick of spending a ton of money on things. So that was like a huge deal for me at the time. It was a large investment, but I knew it was going to last at least 3 or 4 years. And we're on like the 3rd year now with Gertrude. And Gertrude's done really, really well. The Harry Potter films are pretty good, Last Stars. Like even today. It's always funny looking at the intricacies as well, right? Like seeing how, I think it was Crab got changed like halfway through the series. That one's always funny to me. But yeah, the big upgrades that we did this year was obviously combining the 2 PCs finally, because I had a bit of a break in January, so I could do that. And then also, the other thing that we did was go up to 4K on YouTube with the recordings, changing out the mic as well, and also improving some of the editing stuff. So did a lot. Shadowplay added AV1 support, and file size went from like 2 gig to 800 with the same recording settings. Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to... Which 4000 do you have, dog? Do you have the 80 or the 70? But yeah, so that's pretty much the whole setup right now. I'm sure it will change as we go forward, like they always do. But that is it as of now. And I'm very, very proud of Bertha being the OG built computer. And these 2 computers that I've also built have done really, really well. So big ups to Mavis, big ups to Bertha, big ups to Gertrude. And then also, we did build the Mrs.'s PC this year too. So that was also a huge thing. A big positive there. Which is very, very nice. Then we have Maxwell again. High tech forthcoming. I swear I'll stop. I'm sorry. I noticed that many War Thunder CCs made videos about the US getting no AAs, and then Gaijin, as said in your video, said they'll make one. I'm not saying that Gaijin told you all to do these videos, so they would seem like they're fixing the issue and listening and stuff, but I'm not saying they didn't. Gaijin have never told me to make a video. There has been 2 times where I've been contacted by Gaijin about a video that I've made. But they've never told me to make something or to like put pressure on something or anything like that, right? There was one time where I did a sales video like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they changed their website so it actually didn't just have USD, it also showed CAD prices. And I was converting them from USD prices into CAD because of the fact that that's how it used to happen in War Thunder. And the guy who was the head of the community program at the time said to me that I didn't have to do that anymore. So that was one time. And then the other time was where there was a few of the Gaijin guys who were unhappy with a title on one of the videos because they didn't feel like it fairly represented what it said. So they asked me if I would change it. So I did, because it wasn't really a big deal. So yeah, that's pretty much the 2 times I've ever been contacted in terms of like video creation and like pushing me one way or another in terms of it. So yeah, they don't I don't know whether like there is like pushing, or there is like people who are there trying to like influence things, but it's more like when people see trends or when people see issues, like as CCs, you know, like obviously you're involved in the world of putting all of these things together, but the main thing is from it is honestly like a lot of ideas get recycled a lot because, you know, at the end of the day there's a lot of them and you have to like keep up with what's going on. And if you see a trend that people are interested in, you're obviously going to talk about that trend. That's just kind of how it goes. So and also when there is a glaring issue in the game that hasn't been solved for many years, it's pretty obvious like what should be talked about. And the USAA stuff was very obvious, right? It's something that I've actually discussed many times over the years, not just recently. So, and I'm sure other people have as well, like when talking about the issues in terms of the game. Just like how in the past, what I used to do is talk a lot about how many other nations didn't have a ton of vehicles in the game that they needed to have, like a lot of AAs or a lot of areas which were just not in a good place, and now that they are. So that's basically how kind of it goes around. But no, when it comes to the content partnership side of things, honestly, like the esports stuff is slightly different, but like the standard content stuff, the whole point of it is for Gaijin to be able to provide tools for people to make the videos they want to make. That's kind of like the core point of it. It isn't to like direct messages, or it isn't to kind of do anything like that. Sometimes it's about feedback. Sometimes they do ask for feedback on things, such as like, hey, what do you think about this change? Or, you know, have you, you know, do you have any feedback on the dev server, or do you have any bug reports on the dev server, right? But the vast majority of the time, all it is you going, hey, so I want to make this video. I want this vehicle to do it. And them going, yay or nay. That's it. So it's not this like Machiavellian scheme where like, you know, Gaijin tell us what to do or whatever. I'm sure that there are like groups inside of like the content creator community that come up with ideas or things that they want to push, but that is not Gaijin doing it. That is individual creators. And that's something we've seen in the past and we'll see in the future. Hey Aki, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Papa Stalin. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything's alright. Then we have T95, man. Top tier AA is useless. Give us back World War II AA. They actually work. Some top tier AA is useful. But yeah, recently I've been having fun with trying to get IR guided AA to work against a lot of systems, and yeah, it's not very fun, is it? It's not very fun to go out and have a fun time. But hopefully in the future they can add a few more and have a good, enjoyable time with it, because we were talking about this the other day. I think we need to stop thinking about these things in terms of power. I think it's much more it makes much more sense to set it up in a different way. Instead of giving more power to AAs, you need to remove some power from CAS. We need to stop just trying to balance powerful stuff with more power. It doesn't work. It never has. You need to start limiting certain things by changing SP costs. But that's not going to happen, so it's just how it is. Then we have Connor. Hey TEC, in terms of vehicles being added to the game, what's the one vehicle you personally want to see added? What's your opinion on War Thunder's anti-cheat? So, number one, the Covenanter. I just think it's a really interesting vehicle with a unique design. Something that has a really interesting history, which is something that, at least for me, I'm personally, kind of interested in. The fact that you can make 1,000 of a vehicle and never actually get it seen in active combat is just fantastic. I just think it's hilarious that that is a thing. Like, that is something that's kind of unprecedented. Hey, Holy Rune, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Drakenful. So yeah, the Covenanter was a vehicle which was a stopgap. Well, it became a stopgap. It wasn't supposed to be a stopgap. But basically, if you have a look at the early World War II, during the invasion of France, the Covenanter was kind of developed and built. And one of the issues that Britain was having at the time, and this was kind of escalated by the Battle of Britain, was a lot of development and also production was going into aircraft engines because the RAF was seen as kind of the golden boy along with the Royal Navy and the tank setup, even though Britain was actually ahead of its time when it came to tank development in the First World War. During the interwar period, just like a lot of things with Britain, they didn't have a lot of money. Like, Britain was broke after the First World War. They owed a lot of money to places like America, and also the empire started falling apart because, well, guess what? They couldn't protect anybody. So what ended up happening was, even though they created like these tank schools in the 20s and 30s, they didn't really do a lot. They came up with like the light tanks, the medium tank standards, and all of these things, but they never really like went forward with these, which is why places like Germany, for example, took over these areas and were a lot better at kind of, dealing with those things. So what ended up happening with Britain is, by the start of the First World War, they had this really good gun, the 2-pounder, the 40mm. They had the idea of the shoulder stabilizer, which generally was very good. And also, they had, terrible engines, which couldn't move these things. And they were stuck with a doctrine which, unfortunately, just didn't work very well, and relied on these light vehicles with only machine guns, which couldn't really do anything against some of the newer vehicles like the Panzer IIs and IIIs that the Germans were bringing in, right? So they started developing ideas around this 2-pounder, and eventually that led in stuff like the Crusader, but you also had the Covenanter. Now, the Covenanter is super similar to the Crusader, apart from certain very obvious, interesting things. So, first of all, the vehicle had a different turret, which was specifically designed to basically stop 50mm short-barreled fire from Panzer IIIs, which at the time of the Battle of France was the major kind of gun which was around for the Germans, with the Panzer IIIs, with the short 50s, and then also the short 75s coming in from the Panzer IVs, right? But the short 50s were the ones which had a bit more penetration in terms of what they were able to do. So what ended up happening is the Covenanter was designed so what it could do is it could penetrate with its 2-pounder from a further distance than the Panzer III with the short 50. So it could outrange the Panzer III, which was huge. That was insane for the time, right? Because that meant in any engagement, you were able to have an initial advantage because you had better visibility and you could shoot first. So this is awesome. So they started to produce this thing. They had problems with the engine. The engine was too big, so they stuck it in the back of it. But because the engine was too big, they had to put the radiator for the engine, so the thing that cooled it down, in the front of the vehicle. So literally, on the front upper glacis is where the radiator is for the engine, which is in the back, meaning that you had pipes which led alongside the vehicle, which were just, you know, distributing hot air basically through to get it out of the engine. So you can imagine how rough that was for the crew inside. But it was able to do, you know, very effectively what it needed to do. It was able to outtrade the Panzers, and it was able, with the engine, to at least move around okay and generally be fine. So, the invasion of France is going. Germany is sweeping across France. The Covenanter is being built. It would be able to counter the threat, but the invasion of France had gone so badly for the British Expeditionary Force, the Covenanter never gets deployed. It never gets deployed in France, even though that's kind of what it was designed to do, right? So, because it doesn't get deployed, what ends up happening is the next theater that is supposed to be deployed in is North Africa, because that's the area that was kicking off, places like Tunisia, Egypt, areas like that. And it was going to be deployed in North Africa, but by the time that the Germans had finished off the invasion of France and, you know, taken over France, and then also they had the Battle of Britain going on, so they couldn't really supply a lot of stuff to that North African area very well. What ended up happening with the Covenanter was, by the time it got to North Africa, the Germans had developed a new weapon. And this weapon was the long-barreled 50mm on the Panzer III. And that long 50mm, guess what? It had higher muzzle velocity, it had better penetration than the short 50 and the short 75, and was able to outrange the Covenanter. So, this Covenanter that they'd built 1,000 of at the time was worthless, because now it got outranged by the guns the Germans were using, because of the evolution of the Panzer III and also the Panzer IV. So Britain basically had all these tanks that they couldn't do anything with, because at the time it was built, it was great, but within a year, completely worthless. So they just used them for training, and also used them as train guards and weird defensive things in Britain if Germany had ever invaded. So the Covenanter never saw service in an active military place. It never faced the enemy. Weird, right? Crazy story. Hey, Solster, nice to see you. So yeah, that's the story of the Covenanter, and what happened with it, and why, to me, it's one of the most interesting vehicles in the world, because it's kind of a showing of the issues that the good old British had during the Second World War with their tank designs. You know, in some areas they were ahead, in other areas they were behind, and this was one of those where they were very much behind. And even though they were 2 steps ahead, by the time, you know, it kind of got destroyed not by it kind of got destroyed not by like, you know, it being bad. It got destroyed by timing, and the timing of it was incredibly important. And a lot of technologies were like that, where they just came out at slightly the wrong time. Good afternoon, Volkswagen. Nice to see you. So yeah, that's why I'd like to see the Covenanter. There's also many other British vehicles which would be really fun, but yeah, that's something which is for another time, I think. If we're talking about one specific vehicle, it's the Covenanter. But there's also stuff like the Valiant, you know, the Victor, the Manchester, not the Hampton, the Whitley. There's many. Hey, War Thunder Surfer player. Nice C2 string push. You don't like the event vehicle? Oh, well, that sucks. So then we have Maxwell. Hi, TEC. I wasn't going to leave a third comment. Well, this is the fourth, technically. But I came across a video called Gadgeon's RP Siphoning Scheme, War Thunder, which made the case that some RP of some games, mostly the ones that you leave early, don't get put into modifications. There even were some games where nothing comes at all. You should watch the video yourself and tell us what you think. This could be a big issue. I mean, I could do. If it's a bug, then it should be fixed. If it's not a bug, then c'est la vie. If the thing, is it something to do with the spading? Is it to do with the spading stuff? Where when you spade a vehicle, there's a bunch of modification stuff that's just left behind because it doesn't go into anything? Is it that? Or is it like something that's not that? Because in terms of, if it's to do with like when you spade a vehicle and then the thing just disappears, then yeah, fair enough. That is annoying. I do agree. Ooh, nearly got him. But at the same time, if that vehicle gets an added modification, that's where that RP goes, right? But yeah, I'd have to look at it myself. I'm not. I mean, I could look it up, I suppose, if I was really that interested. I don't, once again, like, don't ever attribute malice to things that are probably done through incompetence or ideas that are misunderstood. Gotta be a bit careful with that stuff. Let's see. Then we have Logic Master. Either you feel guilty or it's not fun, so either way not good. Yeah, pretty much. With the RNG stuff. That's what it's talking about. If one person comes out of the equation where they feel like they have like they couldn't do anything about it or get annoyed by it, then that's obviously not good, right? Simple as that. So we have Latina Gaming. You can currently spawn camp naval battles really hard, both ships and air, but air is much worse as you can't outrun a P-47 diving on you. Don't really care about as I've been abusing it for events, but still a comical problem. Well, in naval, you can basically do the same thing that you do in ground, right? Like, oh, sorry, in air arcade, where people just go above the spawns and then just kind of like what this guy's doing. You just go above the spawns, then dive on people as they spawn. And yeah, it sucks, and there's no real way of dealing with it, but it's unfortunately been something people do for years. C'est la vie. You can't really do a lot about it. The only thing that annoys me about naval is the torpedo stuff in arcade, because like, so when there's a challenge for torpedo kills, you know for a fact there's going to be shimmies on both sides, and they're just going to be torpedoing the spawns. Like over and over and over again, right? It's just what happens. So you can spawn, and then you just see waves of torpedoes in front of you. And if you're not in a spaded vehicle, so you don't have like the rudder and things like that, you are just going to get hit, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like it's one of those annoying things. I feel like honestly, with spawn protection, one of the things that should be important with spawn protection is you could actually be protected from different things for different amounts of time. So instead of just having it where you're protected from everything for a certain amount of time, imagine if you were protected from like guns for X amount of time, but protected from torpedoes for another X amount of time. So therefore, you know, you don't just get torpedoed straight away, but people could do damage with you with guns. Same with like in ground, right? So when it comes to like air munitions, if you get hit up by air munitions, it might be better if they set it up in a way so you're actually able to not get bombed or rocketed or cast as quickly as you would get shot by a tank or something like that, right? So you can at least, like, readjust your setup to what's going on. That could work. I don't know. In ground, it's a case of if they shoot, they lose protection. Nah, because you could just spawn in a scout and then... You could just spawn in a scout and just scout everything then. But I get the idea. So we have Islam again. Hey Tech, I re-downloaded the game, solved the sound issue. The gates are hell opened on me, started getting FPS issues, even if I lowered the resolution and graphics settings. God damn. You're having a real tough time with the game, aren't you? Do you have a sound card with your PC? That's also another thing, right? That some people have. Could be that. Ooh. Like if tanks are spawn camping and they shoot you back, they shouldn't have protection anymore? I mean, maybe. So we have Charge. Hey Tech, I want to know your thoughts on enlisted style dynamic maps. Let's see. Control points and spawns being implemented in War Thunder. I like how gameplay can change between defense and offense as points are captured or lost in enlisted. Has a system like this ever been in War Thunder? And if not, do you think it could be? Technically it has been in War Thunder, yes. In different ways. Thank you for the subscription, Awesome Canadian. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much, man. Merci beaucoup. But yeah, they've tried it out in events. The whole, like, to and fro battle line thing. Technically, Enduring Confrontation has a version of it too. Where if you fight in certain areas, you gain control of certain areas and then kind of go from there. So that has been tried. The major reason why stuff like Confrontation doesn't work in War Thunder is the spawn system. So in games like Battlefield and also Enlisted is like perfect for this, right? Enlisted is all about fast battles. It's about getting in, hammering, going to the objective, winning it, going to the next objective, keep doing this over and over again until you win, right? Like, and obviously in Confrontation, there's like another way you can play it, where you can play it a bit more tactically, where you can like go around and, you try and get like more kills on a defense or set up like a bunch of sandbags and stuff. That, in general, is really cool. But in War Thunder, you don't have any of that. And also, because of the spawn system and how it works, it's never going to be able to be good in the way that people want it to be good. Because the moment you die in War Thunder, you're going to have to wait to respawn in another vehicle, and you're going to have to, that push, that offensive attack, which you're looking for, is just not going to work. Which is why War Thunder in general is incredibly defensively, like, in that situation, defense would win pretty much every single time. And that obviously wouldn't be very fun. It would be a lot better if it didn't win every time. But there is no reason why a defensive setup would ever lose in that setup. So that's the problem you've got. With Enlisted, you have quick gameplay where you can go, and then like change up a lot of stuff as you go. Whereas in War Thunder, it's much more stationary and tactical and not running in like a crazy chicken. So I don't think a system like that actually works in War Thunder, unfortunately. It would be nice if it did, but I don't think it will. So then we have Kakaprut. Hi, Tech. Don't you think that giving Chinese the new Alpha Dogs, J10, J11 in top tier means they'll be behind in terms of performance with new arrivals? It's a fun way of looking at it. No idea. Absolutely no idea. I think it's more the fact that obviously there's constant progression when it comes to War Thunder. So whenever a nation doesn't get like a new toy, it's seen as like a negative. But I honestly don't think like China will be behind in that way. I just think that they wanted to have an update centered around the J10 because of the fact that it's a really cool aircraft and because of the fact that you don't see it as much, and because it's kind of like one of those vehicles which is a slight upgrade but not a huge one. So I think it's more just they wanted to build something around it, right? And if they'd put it in the last update, then obviously it wouldn't have it would have taken over everything and kind of looked at, it kind of made everything else, you know, not as good for people to play. So in terms of stuff like the the J10, I think just in general in War Thunder, there's this constant progression idea, right? So you'll always just have more and more stuff going forward, and that will basically mean that you will always have this constant, you know, stuff getting worse and worse and worse until it falls out of the lower BR bracket and then it becomes good again. But that's what every nation's like, right? So I don't think because a nation gets a new vehicle, they're now going to like lose out in the future. Only time will tell in that sense. But things do constantly get worse because better equipment turns up. So we'll have to see what goes on in the future. I'm hoping that in terms of stuff like the J10, it doesn't just lose its vigor straight away, but I don't think it will. Like it'll still be good for a decent amount of time. I don't see it just dying, you know, in terms of what's going on. But yeah, we'll have to see, right? Like we'll have to see what ends up happening with a bunch of these general vehicles. I'm hoping that we do have, you know, not a massive amount of loss of potential of those types of things. They did already say that the vehicle is very good, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So then we have Master Chef and Thomas Martin saying neat, and then also tough topic. I mean, it is a tough topic because there's no solution to spawn camping. Like it's something that can never really be fixed. So it's just how it goes. Then we have Magic Missiles saying first time or first let's go. Let's go! And then also Organic Chemistry Junkie. Hey Tech, thank you for your interesting perspective on the artillery tanks last time. Currently they're exactly like that RNG Hearthstone Goblin example you brought up. Sometimes you overpressure and annihilate. Sometimes you do nothing at all and get deleted. Yeah, which is why they're frustrating to play and also frustrating to play against. If my first idea is hit target delete it would be too much in the other direction, why not add turret break? It's a limited, more common sense version of hull break. Right, let's do this one. The idea is that every turreted vehicle has a certain impact energy threshold. If a single shot exceeds that impact force threshold, it rips the turret off the opposing vehicle and the vehicle dies. Some aiming, therefore some skill is still needed. The larger a vehicle's turret ring, the higher the break threshold. However, larger turrets will also decrease durability due to their weight stressing out the ring mechanisms. Effectively, turret break becomes sort of like comparing armor penetration of a shell and the plate thickness you want to pen. How does that sound instead? Definitely sounds better than the previous one. At the same time, yeah, I would definitely go for something like that over the current system. After playing the IS-3 recently, and seeing people just shoot my cheek and the vehicle just popping for no apparent reason, having some kind of more, not really realistic way, but a way that, makes more sense in my head on how it should work in real life, I'm completely fine with, you know, that. I think, in general, I would like to see more of that. So, yeah, why not? Let's set it up in that way, so we can see what it does. Right now, the situation is just annoying for both sides, because as I said, you either hammer or you don't. If they can make it so there are more realistic parameters around it, and instead of somebody just, you know, shooting straight and getting her done, I think that would be very positive. So yeah, let's give it a go. Sounds a lot better than other suggestions I've heard in the past from people. So yeah, why not? Let's get it sorted. Let's try and get it passed. So that's the end of the questions on the Tech Talk itself. Does anybody in the live stream have any questions or thoughts that they want to go through before we wrap up the Tech Talk? I think in general it's been a pretty good Tech Talk. We've gone through a bunch of different stuff. It's been nice. Like, now that we're back in full action, after my father's gone back home, we should be able to get back to playing a lot of War Thunder. The major thing I also want to do, though, is the other thing I also want to do is I want to play some Frostpunk 2, and I also want to play some Stalker, so that should be quite nice, kind of going forward with it. Looking forward to doing that stuff. Should be good. No, let's just wrap it up. Why not? So, as always, make sure to put your comments in the comment section so we can go through them next time. Peace be with you. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.